This is going to be a little bit tricky because we're going to do Surya Namaskar. So there's about a 2 to 3 ratio. So like 62% of people want to do something else. 32% want to do Surya Namaskar. So we're definitely going to do Surya Namaskar. I'll teach you guys maybe one other thing, but I want you guys to understand this very clearly. So Surya Namaskar is like the thing that you should do every day. It should be like brushing your teeth. And so we definitely want to do that every day, but I will teach you guys other stuff. So we learned a back bend kind of asana. We can learn, we've done a couple of things on stream like Tapasya, which we can do. I'll definitely start teaching you guys pranayam. And so we'll teach you guys more stuff. I get that y'all are ready for something else. But I don't want you guys to forget that like some things should be done every day, and be a little bit careful. So when you think about why your mind wants to learn something besides Surya Namaskar, like what is it? Are you guys getting bored of it? Are you curious? Do you want to learn more? Do you think more is better? So think about all those things, like where does your curiosity come from? And I think ultimately Surya Namaskar is really the most important practice. But since you guys want to learn something else, and we've been doing it for a week, I'll teach you guys something else, okay? So let's start with yoga. All righty. Okay, hopefully this will be a little bit better because I'm back at my old setup with more stable internet. Okay. All right. Can you guys? Okay, good. You guys can see me, right? So let's start. So start by standing up straight, feet shoulder width apart. Close your eyes. Just feel the stability of kind of being here for a second. And we're going to apply our same rules as before, so you guys can watch me do it if you don't feel comfortable. Watch one round, and if not, if y'all feel kind of ready to go, then you can do it with me. So let's start by putting our feet together. Anchor yourself in your instability. Namaste position. And then we're going to begin. So arms up. Biceps to your ears. Feel the stretch. Feel your body waking up. Feel your back. And then bend down to touch your toes. Feel the stiffness. Let your head hang. And then right leg back. And look up. Half step forward. Good. Try to keep your palms flat. Toes curled. Back straight and look up. Left leg back. And look up. Push-up position. Stay straight. And then down. Toes, knees, chest, forehead. And then push up. Hips to the ground, feet flat, shoulders out, neck curled up. And then to downward facing dog or Parvatasana, put your heels flat into the ground. And now right leg forward. Look up and sort of you can move your hips a little bit to feel stretch in different areas. You should form a line between your two hands and your foot. And then we're back up to touching your toes. As you exhale, let yourself sink further. See how much further you can go compared to when we started. Then back up. Nice and straight. And then back down. So now we're going to turn. I'm going to go ahead and do one round sideways, okay? Just so you guys can see what things look like from a sideways angle. Now we'll begin round 2. So now what we're going to do is incorporate, well, let's do round 2, and then we'll do round 3 with some specific breathing, okay? So let's begin again. Up. We're going to go a little bit faster this time. Feel the stretch. Down. See, so like as you loosen up, you're going to kind of be able to go down a little bit more. Right leg back. Right, so this is sort of right leg back, and then you can kind of sink in a little bit or up. Just feel that difference. Left leg back. Push up position, so you want to stay nice and straight. The further up you go, the easier it's going to be, but we want to stay nice and straight. Okay. And then down. Toes, knees, chest, forehead. Butt is a little bit in the air. And then feet flattened, hips down. Push up, shoulders rounded out. And then feet, toes back on the ground. And then downward facing dog. If that's what this posture is, I don't really know. So try to put your butt in the air, heels down. So you don't want to be like this, heels down. And right leg forward. Look up. And then feet together, hang down, touch your toes. Come back up. Fingers towards the sky. Feel that stretch. And then back to baseline. Namaste position. Okay? And now we're going to do round 3. All right. So round 3, we're going to incorporate a little bit of breath. So we're going to move a little faster this time. And what I want you guys to do is essentially, with each alternate pose, you want to breathe out and breathe in. Now, practically, what you're probably going to have to do, we're probably going to take breaths in between. But when we go up, we're going to breathe in. When we go down, we're going to breathe out. When we put one leg back, we're going to breathe in. When we go down, let me think about this. So, yeah, that's not going to quite work. So we want to, I'll tell you guys to breathe in or breathe out. And, because Bhujangasana should be exhalation. Okay. So for most poses, we're going to kind of do opposites of breathing in or breathing out. And then for some cases, we're going to kind of recenter and relax and start with a full breath. Okay. So I'll explain. So the first, let's adopt our position and start by breathing in. And then out. Right leg back. Out. Oh, there we go. Down and breathe in. Push up and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. out. And then back to center. Let's do another round, okay? We're going to do 2 more. I think I may be doing the breaths wrong, but who cares? So breathe in, out, left leg back, in, out, in, out, in, out, and then back to baseline. In the third round, okay? So get ready. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, and back to baseline. Now we're going to go back into Shavasana. So go ahead and lay down. And feel the vitality kind of coursing through you as your body wakes up. Blood's pumping now. You've been breathing well, moving, getting rid of some of the sluggishness. And now go ahead and come back. It's April 1st. Probably should have done something for April Fools, but I didn't. So we're going to go ahead and sit up. Let's go ahead and build on our meditation practice from yesterday. So I want you guys to take your middle finger and place it over your forehead. Start to feel the energizing between your eyebrows. And come back down. Now focus on your forehead. Spot between your eyebrows. now let yourself come back. Back to the world. It's April 1st. You may have tasks to do today. The COVID pandemic is very active in the world, and it's time to learn about Dharma. Okay? So welcome back, guys. Let's get started. Okay, so do I even need to wear, I don't even think I need to wear headphones. Why do I wear headphones? All right, so let's see, should we, I feel like we should get into, let's take a quick break. I'm going to get a little bit of water. Okay, and let's see. Do you guys want? I love these polls, man. It's going to give me a second to set up reflector and stuff anyway. So, okay, let's take a quick break. We'll resume. So it's 9:26 my time. We'll resume at 9:30, okay? So we'll have plenty of time. Don't worry. Expertly. Can we do today's lecture with full Indian accent? Okay, we can try, but it's going to be a good one. Okay, we can do it about Dharma. Dharma. We can do it. Black screen cap April 1st. Okay, we can try. Let's try to do the full screen. We can do the full accent. Okay, full lecture. Lecture. Okay, let's do Paul. Paul, you know Paul Smith. He's a friend of mine. Paul. Let's do, okay, April 1st lecture in accent or not? Accent, no. Let's do Paul. Dr. K likes the Paul. Oh my goodness. It's 50-50. It's 50-50. Oh, looks like you guys lose, accent folks. 51-48, maybe the closest poll in history. Team Natural. Okay, sorry guys. 50-49. Okay, that's okay. Maybe we'll stream today in accent. Sad. Yeah, you guys can blame your colleagues for wanting to, learn things and be professional. Okay? Not my fault. All right, so let's talk. Today we're going to talk about Dharma. Okay? So, bad handwriting, Pog. Dharma. So, Dharma is the Sanskrit word for duty or responsibility. And why is Dharma important? So, generally speaking, the compass that we use in life in terms of like what we're trying to do and what we're trying to not do is to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Okay? So this is basically how we live our life. And this is the way that our brain is wired. Okay? So this is the result of brain wiring. And if we think about this for a second, what are the foods that we enjoy eating and what are the foods that we don't enjoy eating? Generally speaking, our brain gravitates towards foods that are pleasurable and away from foods that are like unpleasurable. So we tend to like sweet, fatty things and avoid bitter or astringent things. Astringent is actually one of the tastes that we don't really talk about very much in the West, but there are more than 5 tastes. So astringent is the taste of like unripe fruit. So if you guys have like an unripe fruit, like, it's sort of sour, but it also makes your mouth kind of pucker or dry. That taste is called astringent. So this is kind of how we're wired. Like if we think about, if a child falls down and gets hurt, that is going to be painful. And then the child is going to avoid that. And if a child takes a step forward and is successful, we're going to praise the child. And then the child is really going to like that. And then they're going to kind of go towards that, right? So neuroscientifically, we're wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So what does that kind of mean for us? Like, I think the challenge here is that if we're wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, what that means is that essentially we're going to avoid bad, boring, painful stuff. Right? Like this sort of makes sense. Like we don't want to do something that's going to make us feel ashamed. We don't want to do something that's going to make us feel fearful. So like basically what we tend to avoid is boredom, number 1. Frustration, number 2. What was the third thing? And worry, number 3. Right? So like, sure, you can talk about emotions like fear, shame, anger. But generally speaking, when people are avoiding tasks, this is not actually what their experience is. This is what their experience is, right? If I ask you, like, why don't you go to the library day and study? Your answer isn't going to be fear, shame, or anger. It's going to be boredom, like I'm bored. This is boring. Boring, 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 boring. Why don't you apply for 50 jobs? Because it's frustrating. Frustrating, 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 frustrating. So what this means, the tricky thing though, is that if we think about moving forward in life tends to, so let's just talk about pleasure for a second, actually. So let's talk about pleasure. And so what we do is we seek pleasurable activities, right? So this includes video games, YouTube, like social media, and then like, streaming services. This can also include drugs. It can include eating unhealthy. The last thing here I'm going to add is hard, right? And things that are kind of pleasurable or things that are easy. Right, so let's include hard. Okay. Okay. So what this means is like your brain is kind of wired to pick this category more than this oh, sorry, the other way around. Your brain is wired to pick this category more than that category. And what this results in is a grand old feeling of being, stuck. I may have to switch to the other notes app. Therefore, you are stuck. So your life is sort of categorized by, you know, picking this stuff over this stuff. And so this results in you kind of being stuck in life. You can't move forward. So then what happens is you guys like ask these questions, right? We ask all these questions like, how do I switch this around? Is there some way that I can switch things around? How do I get motivation, willpower, discipline, all this kind of stuff, right? This is where you guys think the answer is. Because what you do is you observe some people in the outside world, and the people that actually manage to do this, your perception is that this is motivation, willpower, discipline, or all that good stuff, or smart. Your perception is that this is basically pick your positive trait that you do not have. That's what our mind does, right? We look at this curve and we say like, oh, that person is, and you can insert whatever you want to. You can insert any positive trait that you lack. It's kind of interesting, right? And you say, oh, like that person is disciplined and I'm not, and that's why this person is successful when I'm not. Okay. Now the question is so like the problem with this is like how do you get this stuff, right? I mean, this stuff up here in the top right, like how do you get this? It's hard. So you guys can talk about like we can talk about motivation, willpower, discipline. We have, and you can work on those things, and those do help. But what I really like about Dharma is if you guys want to turn this thing around, Dharma is the easy way to do it. So Dharma is the force that allows you to pick this stuff over this stuff without willpower, motivation, etc. Dharma is the thing that naturally causes you to not necessarily seek pain, but let's put it, accept pain and give up pleasure. This is what Dharma allows you to do. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about how that happens. So I've told this story several times, but like let's talk about something that's a little bit more timely. So let's say that you're, so I've seen some of these things on social media and stuff, but let's say that you're a doctor. And so if you're a doctor, you do a lot of things that actually like really suck. So good examples are 24-hour calls. Other examples are dealing with insurance companies. One of my least favorites. Okay. Oh. Etc. So, and then like nowadays, like doctors are even like separated from their own families because of COVID and stuff like that. And so the question is like, how are you able to do this? So there's definitely like, a lot of things that allow you to do this. So one is money. One is prestige, right? There are all kinds of things that like will gravitate towards this. So you can say this is kind of long-term stuff, but generally in my experience, when you're actually on call, and when you're in hour 22 of call, when you're like at hour 22, And then like, why is it that you're able to like function there? It's because, you know, there's a patient who needs you. And if you guys think about this, like you actually do a good job when there's someone who needs you. So if you think about it, this causes you to be your best self. This is what kind of brings the best part out of you, right? Like you won't cook a meal for yourself, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of you do. But if you think about like, you know, cooking a fresh home cooked meal for someone who's sick, that allows you to like wake up or go to the grocery store or cook for them and deliver it to them. Like if a friend of yours needs help moving, or they need help with this or that, or like your best self often comes out due to someone needing you, because that's like your duty or responsibility. And I'll give you guys just kind of another sort of classic example. So this is the one that I usually use. So let's say that there's a gun, okay? And let's say here's me. And generally speaking, you know, our response is to run away from the gun. I suppose I should label this in case people don't have audio. Because what does the gun mean? The gun means pain, death, suffering, kind of lost opportunity. And so basically what I want to do, oh, is this moving? Yeah, okay. Is run away from the gun. And if we think about it, this is a no-brainer. Like facing a gun can be really, really hard, and our instinctive reaction is to run away, right? So then I'm running away from this. So what happens if my kid is involved? Right? So suddenly like this actually gets worse. Like everything here increases once you add my kid to the scenario. But how do my actions change? Right? Suddenly, instead of running away, moving toward the gun. So if you just think about it, like this isn't complicated. The stimulus is the same. In fact, the stimulus is even worse, but our natural inclination changes drastically once our dharma becomes involved. And this is the essence of it. Like it's not that complicated. Dharma is that which allows you to accept pain and give up pleasure. And the problem right now is that you guys don't accept pain and give up pleasure. You avoid pain and you seek pleasure, which keeps you doing these kinds of activities. And so the secret of dharma is that once you find your dharma, like you're able to make this choice more and more and more, right? This choice becomes easier. You start to pick this instead of this. And so the question then becomes, we're going to see if, okay, so I wonder if we should do questions as we go. So let's just pause there for a second. I'm going to invite Casper, Thomas, and Lucas. Okay, let's have them hop in to do questions, and then I'm going to keep talking. So we're going to try something a little bit different today. Okay, so try to keep your questions topic focused, please. So that's okay. You can accept pain and accept pleasure. So let's just think. So then the question becomes, so now a lot of people have a question for me, which is like, I've talked about Dharma a lot on stream. So then the next question becomes, how do I find, oh, what's wrong with this thing? Find my, the Dharma, okay? I see we're getting a lot of questions. Hold on. Do I need to turn off screen share to talk to people? Let's see. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I pick randomly. Yeah, sure. It would be smarter to grab the kid and run. But I mean, my point is that I'm facing the danger, whereas before I was running away from it. And even if that involves running away from it, but it's like, I'm going to put myself between the kid and the gun. So let's talk a little bit about, and we'll see, is this working in terms of questions? Do I need to turn off screen share? let's see for a second. Okay. Okay, I don't know why people aren't able to get in. I'm going to invite Elias, Thomas, and Joe. Okay. I don't know what's the deal there. Okay, here we go. Elias is in the room. Isn't this is kind of distracting? Absolutely. So I'm trying something new. We're going to see if we can sort of flow questions in and simulate more of a classroom environment. Because usually when I teach, I'm kind of like, I answer questions as people raise their hands. So I'm going to try that and see how this works. Okay, now everyone's flooding in. All right, so we'll give people just a second, and then we'll get to how do we find our Dharma. We'll try this. And then at the end, I'll poll you guys about whether you want to take questions at the end or you guys like questions in the middle.
Am I free to speak or?
Yeah, go for it.
Hello?
Oh, okay. So I guess my question is like the presumption of Dharma is that you're going to be like more motivated to seek discomfort because you're doing it for like the benefit of somebody else. But what if like you aren't? I mean, suppose somebody isn't motivated to help others. Like, is it possible that there are people like that in chat, and including me? And what would your Dharma be in that case?
So your Dharma isn't necessarily to help other people. My point is that Dharma is what allows you to accept pain and give up pleasure. So for example, we'll get to this in a second. So I think that the reason I use the example of helping others is because it's something that people can clearly understand. Like in my scenario, why I would want to avoid a gun and then why I would want to step in front of a gun. Like in one moment, it flips around what my natural inclination is and what I do, right? So, but that's just one example of Dharma. There are all kinds of Dharmas. So the second thing is like, what if your Dharma, what if you don't like helping people? I don't think helping people is Dharma. So the question is there anyone in life that you have a duty or responsibility to support or help? And if you don't, that's okay. So I think that like this is also where I have a Dharma to my kid because I have a kid. If I didn't have a kid, I wouldn't have Dharma to a kid. So I don't think that it's just helping people, and we'll kind of get to that. Like, how do you find your Dharma? I think you can absolutely have a Dharma to yourself, or you can have a Dharma to a call, like a calling, right? So you can, so we'll kind of get to this, but I think that like for a lot of you guys, your Dharma is actually to study and grow and develop yourself. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to focus that, but your Dharma doesn't have to be to help other people. Like there are monks who are sitting in the Himalayas who are like sitting in caves and meditating all day. That's their Dharma, but their Dharma doesn't involve any other people. They don't see people for like decades, and that's completely fine.
Okay, thank you.
Right? So you can be like an author in a cabin in the woods, and in your heart, you have a story to tell, and that's what you devote yourself to. And it doesn't involve other people. It's just there's a story that lives within you that you need to like birth and bring into the world, which is a completely acceptable Dharma.
Yeah. The author example makes it clear. Thanks.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be to help people. That's just the simplest example that people can understand. Great question.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go with Alexander.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey.
You hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So I'm just having some difficulty figuring out what my Dharma is, I guess.
Sure.
Because I'm doing all kinds of things in my life that, like, I don't know, I feel like I started doing them because my parents wanted me to. Like, I'm 29 and I work as a software developer and I'm building a house. And I don't know, just like a lot of things are going right, but like I'm still getting over depression and stuff. So I don't know what my Dharma is in all of this, I guess. It's just
Sure.
the short way to put it. And it's still very taxing sometimes. Like, I'm really hard on myself, and yeah, I don't know. I just think because like I don't see my Dharma in the situation, that there's still difficulty in like doing all these tasks and not feeling like pressured, and yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing is that, you know, whether you feel difficulty or not is irrespective of your Dharma. Right? So the whole point behind Dharma is it's that which allows you to choose the difficult path instead of the easier path. Now, in your case, I think that this sort of makes sense. And I don't know exactly, so we'll kind of get to how to find your Dharma. That's really why we're sort of doing a lecture about this. But, you know, I think that my question to you would be like, is there any kind of calling that you have? Like, what is it that when you think about your life and you think like, I wish I ... how do you finish that sentence? And if the answer is a negative, that's not sufficient, right? I wish I didn't work as a computer programmer. Like, that's not sufficient. Like, the question is, I wish I what?
Yeah, I wish I either could travel more or could help people more. Like, yeah.
Okay.
One of those, like, I feel strongly about both of those. I think the traveling is mostly because it just gets me into a place where I feel more comfortable. So I don't think that's like the right one. I think the right one is like helping people more, because like in the past I've needed help.
Okay.
And
okay.
like I didn't get it for a very long time until like 2 years ago I finally did. But yeah.
So Alexander, I think unfortunately answering your question is going to take up, because it's sort of an individual exploration, and I want to focus on broad principles that apply to other people. So yeah. I'd say like, hopefully the rest of the lecture is going to be helpful to you. But I'd say that and we'll kind of get to this, like I'm going to talk about a couple of things which I want you to kind of keep an eye out for. The first is that Karma and Dharma are related, and we'll get to that. And that, you know, your Dharma is not something that, it's not like you wake up one day and you find a Dharma and then you're set for life. Like, that's not how it works. It's sort of an evolving process where right now your Dharma is to find your Dharma. And oddly enough, I wouldn't say that you should focus on helping people unless you actually have a way to help people. Like, that's going to come later. So I've always wanted to help people too, but helping people involved becoming qualified to help people in a particular way first, right? So like, one thing that I can just think of is if you're a programmer, there are a couple hundred people on our Discord that are like NEETs, and they want to learn programming. So I think our mods actually put together a programming workshop. So that's an example of like a group of people in our community stepped up and realized that there are like hundreds or thousands of people in our community that are stuck, and that they can actually help them by teaching them programming. I think that that's a wonderful example of like living your Dharma in the moment. Oddly enough, I'd recommend that if you want to travel, you should probably travel actually, rather than trying to help people, because trying to help people just sort of randomly, it's not like I'm going to go, you know, I'm not going to go looking for people. I mean, I guess unless I'm Batman, I'm not going to go looking for people who are like pointing guns at other people and try to step in their path. Like, arbitrarily helping people is just, that's not Dharma. Right. I use that because I have a specific duty. And the issue is that you want to help people, but who do you have a specific duty to help? Do you have anyone that you should be helping?
Yeah, it's kind of, I guess like we'd have to get pretty deep into it, but I've been 2 years sober. So I go to like AA meetings. So like there's opportunities there.
Yeah. So that's the kind of question you should be asking yourself, right? Is like, what in this moment, who can I help? And if the answer is like not really many people, then I would focus on travel. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Take care, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Nice chair, by the way.
Thanks. David?
Hello?
Hey.
Okay, so you can hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So my question isn't as broad as you might not like, but about like a little over a year ago, my grandpa passed away. And so now it's just me and my grandma, and I feel like I have a Dharma to kind of like step up and like fill the shoes that he did around the house. Sorry. And I'm just kind of like but my mom isn't kind of like, she doesn't want that. She's kind of like, she's taking on the responsibilities. Like, I'm the parent, you know, like, I want you to go on and live your life and do all that stuff. But like, I want to figure out like how I can start that conversation with her.
Start which conversation with her?
Like that I'm okay, like setting aside my life for now, like to kind of like help her out, because I feel like that's like what I have to do.
Okay. So I think, I mean, so your question is about how to have a conversation with your mom about what you feel your dharma is?
Or like, I feel like I have a dharma to her, and I'm not, is that like reasonable?
Sure. Okay. What is your dharma to her?
To provide. She's smoked for a long time, so she's like has really bad lungs, and she needs like oxygen tanks, and so.
And what is your mom advocating that you do?
She says that she doesn't want to, like, she actually broke down once in saying that like she doesn't want to have to put that responsibility onto me.
Okay. And so, but what does your mom want you to do?
I'm not sure. I've never actually asked.
Okay. So you said earlier that she wants you to kind of like go live your life and don't stay back because of her, right? And your grandmother. You kind of suggested that. So I think the first thing is that like you guys need to have a conversation about what your wants are, right? So you should ask her, what do you want my life to be? And you should think about what you want your life to be. Now, let me ask you something. So Dharma allows us to accept negative emotions or avoid negative emotions?
Accept them.
Okay. So if you left your family, how old are you, David?
21.
Okay. And what are your options for leaving your family? Like, what would you do?
I'd have to, I guess, find an apartment and just live by myself. Okay.
Like, would you go to school or get a job, or like, if you lived for yourself, what would that look like?
I do have a job, but it's closed down because of COVID.
Sure. But what would living for, like, not sacrificing for your family, what would that look like for you?
I'm not sure, really.
Okay. So if you moved out on your own and started to live your life, how would you feel?
Probably get like pretty bored, like, because there's not like my grandma to just like, if I'm on the computer, I can't just like get up and go talk to her when I want. And then like if I live on my own, it's just kind of like I'm just there by myself.
Okay. So at first I had understood your question to be sort of like a conflict of dharma. Like, do you live your own life, or do you live a life sort of helping out your family? And I thought that there was a conflict there, but the more that I'm asking you, it doesn't seem like there's actually a conflict there.
Okay.
Like, what do you think?
I'm just not so, like, I don't know how to feel about it.
Okay. So my thought is that the first thing that you should do is, and I think you asked a good question. You were like, I'm trying to figure out how to talk to her. You've got to talk to your family about this stuff, right? Like, you guys have to sit down and you got to say, Mom, I'd like to try to understand what the next 5 years of our lives are going to look like. And then you guys have to sit down. It sounds like you guys, and this is hard because people, oftentimes don't have conversations like this. And there are all these feelings of guilt and stuff like that. And then you guys can run through different scenarios. So you can say, like, option one is I stay at home. And then how does that make you feel? And what does that look like? How does that make me feel? How does that make grandma feel? And then option two is that I move out of the house. How does that make you feel? How does that make me feel? How does that make grandma feel? And what does that look like? And just because people, so the tricky thing here is, I mean, I was shooting for some point, which I don't think is applicable to you, but I want you guys to notice that in David's case, what path, I mean, he says that moving out makes him feel pretty good, but like I was envisioning that moving out would make him feel guilty.
Yeah.
And if we really think about Dharma lets us accept guilt. That's exactly what it does, right? So right now, you not moving out it has something to do with guilty, like keeping you at home. Do you see that? It's actually avoidance of the guilt that keeps you stuck at home. And so you would think that the right thing to do is to stay at home. But now this is where you really have to tunnel down into yourself and ask yourself, am I staying at home because it's the right thing to do? Or am I staying home because staying home protects me from guilt? Because the right thing to do may actually be to move out, but like moving out involves accepting that guilt and like letting your family fend for themselves, or acknowledging that like given your family's earning power, spending a few years going to college and getting a decent job and making like 60K or 100K a year is actually going to be far better for your family starting at the age of 25. I don't know what kind of work you do or how much you make or things like that. But it's a very possible scenario that investing in yourself is the best thing you can do for your family.
Also, unfortunately, I don't really know how much longer she has left, because she's getting up there and she's been like she's smoked her entire life. So
sure. So you don't know how, so all that tells me is that it would make you feel more guilty if you left.
Yep.
And just because you feel guilty doesn't mean that it's the right or the wrong thing to do. So this is why you need to have a conversation with your mom. And so I'm going to leave you with one last question. Have you graduated from college?
No, I did go for a semester, but then I just,
sure. So then let me ask you something. When your mom passes away, what do you think will give her more comfort? Seeing you living at home, working whatever job you're working, or well on your way to like becoming a successful human who can provide for your family in a very comfortable way?
Okay.
Right? So Dharma is tricky. And I'm not saying you should abandon your mom, but you really have to think about like, what is your Dharma to her and what is her Dharma to you? What is her Dharma to you? It's to provide for you and set you up in a life that is like, that you can be successful and have kids of your own, and to create she wants to create a life for you that is different. She wants you to have a life that is different from her life, right? She wants you to be healthy and stable so that your kids don't have to worry about worrying about you. This is a conversation that you need to have with her. And as bizarre as it sounds, I'd be really careful, because this is the tricky thing. Everyone says the right thing to do is to stay with your mom for her last years where she's infirm and needs your help and is dying, and then you're never going to see her again. Makes perfect sense, is kind of like objectively correct. And your Dharma may be different. Your Dharma may be to start to build a life for yourself and recognize that it's your karma and her karma that she doesn't have much time left on this earth. So you call her every day, or maybe you stay at home or whatever. You guys have to talk this through and figure out like what the path is. Because I'm pretty sure that, you know, what, as a parent, I can tell you that like I could give two shits about my own happiness. Like I don't want my kids to take care of me. Like I don't care about that. Like I want them to live their lives and be successful. Like that's what's going to make me happy. Like, does it make me happy to see them every day? Absolutely. But like that is pleasure. My Dharma, fulfilling my Dharma to my kids, is letting them live their own lives. And that's going to be so much more satisfying than just having them around. Okay. I'm getting some kind of feedback. So
for me?
I'm not sure, but
okay.
All right, David. So think about that. Okay. And I think you have to have a conversation with her. Okay. And that conversation is important now, because if she doesn't have long to live, then you've got to really think about, what does she want? How secure or worried is she going to be about your future when she passes away? And probably the best thing that you can do for her is for her to not worry about you when you're passing, when she passes away. And I had to mute you, so we can't hear you. But you can turn it on again, because we were getting feedback.
Oh, okay. Sorry about
that. So closing thoughts before we give you the boot.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk. We'll try to have more talks, I guess. But yeah, it's gonna take a while.
Good luck, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do Joe. Joe, if you're around, and then we're gonna get back to the lecture because this took way too long. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So, yeah, I kind of have like two directions I might want to ask questions in. One is sort of confirming like if I can have a Dharma to like sort of I don't want to call it an abusive relationship, because I think the person, the more I look into it, the more I think they might have like some semblance of like BPD. But it seems like for historically my relationships I've kind of been in longer than people would recommend, you know, like people would be like, why are you still with this person? Like, this is terrible. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel this obligation. And then another one is, sorry, yeah, my connection seems low at the moment. So I'm on audio only. So, so the other one is, so kind of after like finding you, and I was in a rut for a while and kind of used some Dharma and meditation and stuff to kind of like 180, which was cool. And then I sort of realized that, well, I don't know, people just started coming to me for help. Like, I don't understand it. And I've helped people in this Discord and my friends and all kind. It's really weird. So I sort of abandoning my like career dream of being a project manager that I've wanted for like 2 years. And I just want to be a life coach, and I want to like start my own business. So I took a leave of absence from work because it's kind of like too distracting. And I'm just purely focused on that, but I'm still not. So I feel like that's my Dharma, is to like just become a life coach and to help people and kind of do what you do. And, the issue though is I have a lot I need to do to like be an entrepreneur and like launch a website. Like I don't know. It seems like it's my Dharma, but I'm not really doing the thing, you know, that I need to do. So those are.
We're going to get to answering your question in a moment. But Joe, so first of all, huge congrats on turning your life around and being inspired and helping other people. That's awesome. So that's like the whole, you know, there's AOE healing, and then there's also training other healers. My sense is that I would not abandon a career for the sake of your Dharma until it's absolutely ready. Right? So like, I think this is where you have to be really, really careful, because if you actually want to be successful at helping people, you may need like financial stability in order to build your thing off of the ground. Yeah. So like, I'll give you a good example. I don't think that I think that the people who suffer the most and get the most stuck in life are paid yoga teachers. So people fall in love with yoga and they're like, oh, I love yoga. I want to do this all day, every day. I want it to be my job. And then they like try to like become a paid yoga teacher, and it doesn't pay very well. And then all kinds of other things like get in the way of them being able to just teach yoga purely. It starts to become a business. They have to worry about paying bills. They start worrying about marketing. They become entrepreneurs. And some of them really like it, and some of them are very successful. That's probably like 1%. And 99% of them are kind of like hustling and moving from paycheck to paycheck, and it's not a very good life. I also think that in general, helping other people should not be a livelihood. So I think that your incentives are going to get really, really misaligned if you depend on helping people for your income. Okay. I know that sounds really weird. So I'd say that also, if your dream is to be a product manager, like, I don't know what you mean by
not. So really, it was the first thing that resonated with me, as far like I've just been doing customer service for like so long, and then this thing sort of opened up, and like I kind of looked at some of my core like values. You had an exercise that you told people to do at some point, like write down when you last felt fulfilled, and I found a lot of my values from that. And then I looked at the project management, and I was like, oh, this checks about half the boxes. And then I looked at like just talking to people and just either like a mentor-mentee relationship or like whatever types of stuff, those were way more hooking into all my values. So this is what I would say. If you're on the path to become a product manager, I would actually recommend that you. So like, what would be okay? It's completely. So it's like I have tried to hit that ceiling like so many times that I've given up. Like I just can't.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I think that's a little bit different. I mean, my thought would be that, you know, if you want to become a life coach, go for it. It's a crowded space and it's hard to make money. And so, you know, generally, I also think that like helping people is something that you can definitely get compensated for, but I think that like you should be careful about your incentives. So I think part of what makes Healthy Gamer good is that I have a job that supports my family. This is my side gig. Mm-hmm. And I find that having it as your side gig allows you to not have perverse incentives around helping people.
I think what I want to do is like sort of get the ball rolling, so to speak, like deploy like the website, get stuff kind of out there, get the sort of foundational work done, and then go back to work and then kind of still do like 40 hours a week.
Joe, are you looking for my blessing or are you looking for...
I'm trying to understand why I want to do the foundational work and then go back, like resume working at my career. What I don't understand is I'm not. Like, so it seems like it's my Dharma, but I'm not doing it. I have time and I'm not doing it. I'm choosing to do other things.
Yeah. So that I'm not quite sure. So I don't know. I think this is
basically, I don't know if it seems compellingly, overwhelmingly the case that it's my Dharma, but it doesn't seem to be having the impact Dharma does.
So then I don't think I think you need to explore more of what your Dharma is. I think the other way to think about it is like, instead of getting the pleasurable thing, which is like getting your life coach website off the ground, which would be satisfying and gratifying to you, you should do the difficult thing, which is devote yourself to being a product manager and understand that like the reason that being a product manager doesn't work for you is because it's not in service to something else, right? So being a product manager is going to serve your goal of helping other people. And then you start helping people like in the way that you have been on our Discord, sign up to be a recovery coach or something like that. Like that's a great way to I wouldn't abandon, it sounds like you don't have much of a product manager career right now, but I would consider like, build, and we'll kind of get to this, but like building up yourself first before you start helping other people. Helping people is in the second phase of life, which we'll talk about. But and I mean, it sounds to me like you're actually, it's still a little bit unclear to me what your question is. So it sounds like you formulated a plan that you feel good about. What you really want to do is you want to get this stuff off the ground. But I think it's going to be like, I don't know how successful you're going to be because I don't know what separates you from any of the other coaches on the internet. Like just because you have some experience helping people, like I started helping people when I was like very young too, like basically when I came back from India at the age of 21. And like, or the first time I came back from India. And then like, I still was helping people here or there, but it didn't become a career for me for a decade later and not really my Dharma for 15 years later. So can you do it earlier? Absolutely. But I would say that like we'll get to this. So I'll kind of talk about a couple of these things. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
okay.
It's mostly that I just don't know if the Dharma is working or not is really my question. And that's,
so then I don't think you've really found your Dharma yet. If it's not working, then we'll get to that. Okay. All right. Take care.
Right, cool. Thanks.
Elias, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give you the boot because we're almost at time and there's still a couple of important concepts I want to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair. I figured that's fair.
Take care, man.
People are going to screw me if I don't get off.
No, it's okay. It's my choice. Okay. So let's kind of go back to screen sharing. Oh God. Did I just bust the lecture? Hold on. Okay, that took way longer than possible. So let me just start by actually asking you guys a couple of questions, okay? So what I'd like to do, whoops. So when I ask a question in the middle, so we'll talk about that. I think that's actually a little bit tricky. And maybe we won't do that again. But what I'm really hoping for, which I should have been a little bit clearer about, and I don't know how I'm going to filter questions, is I'd like to ask you guys questions that are not quite as personal, but are relevant to sort of the topic that we've covered so far in the future. Okay, but that's okay. Okay. So let's get to how do I find my Dharma? So we have to think about whether that's possible. So I'm trying to simulate sort of a lecture, right? Where like I'm talking about something and someone raises their hand and I want to be able to call on them. And so they can ask kind of a topically relevant question. So, but we tried that. So we'll go a little bit long today. So how do I find my Dharma? So the first thing is that there are two different topics that I want to cover today. One is kind of how you find your Dharma, and the second is Dharma and Karma. So in the Sanskrit system, there are 4 stages to life. Okay, so if you don't know what your Dharma is, like Sanskrit kind of gives you a prescription. So there are 4 stages. Okay, first is student, which is Brahmacharya. householder. Sorry, wrong one. Grahastashram. Third is transition. Vanaprastashram. Okay. So if you guys didn't realize, bad handwriting plus complicated Sanskrit words are a terrible combination. Oh, I should have. Okay, so renunciation. Sannyas. Okay. So there are 4 stages, and basically where you are in life dictates your dharma. So the first stage is to student. So this is where your dharma is a brahmacharya, is to learn, develop, and grow. So this is when you kind of like the first stage of life, like when you're 21, you're not supposed to be like out saving the world, right? That's something that I'm 37. So I spent, 15 years or longer, like basically, probably the first 30 years of my life, basically focusing on myself. And I didn't do that intentionally. It's just what happened. So I went to India and I decided to become a monk at the age of 21. And my teachers said no. They're like, you have to go finish your education. So to understand that like your dharma and helping people, that's going to come later. So your karma is going to determine your dharma, which we'll talk about in a second. But really, if you guys are stuck, the first thing to understand is that like if you want to help people, you can't really help people right now, right? Like you're not in a position to help people. Like David wants to support his family, but his capacity to support his family is very limited. So what you guys really need to do is focus first on learning, developing, and growing. And a couple days ago on stream, I talked a little bit about like how to prepare for medical school, like how to be a good medical student. And I tried to explain to people that like what I try to explain to medical students is that generally speaking, they want A's. And so like they've gotten A's and they're oriented towards A's their entire life. No, I mean, this is the first 25 to 30 years of your life should be spent doing this. So until you're about 30, you should be a brahmacharya. It doesn't mean between the ages of, so I guess if you guys want to do it that way, like we'll say this, we'll say 0 to 25 to 30. Okay, that's maybe a better description. So in terms of a medical student, like their job is not really to help anyone yet, but like they're also focused on grades. So the question is, what is their dharma? And what I try to explain to them is like, you should forget about grades and understand one day that you're going to be, someone's going to depend on you to save their life. And so what you should be doing is preparing for that fictional patient in the future. One day someone is going to walk into your door, or you're going to be at the mall, or you're going to be at a wedding. In the first year of being a medical doctor, I dealt with 3 medical emergencies where I was the only doctor around. Like I went to 2 weddings and there were like medical emergencies. And then they were like, is there a doctor around? I was like, fuck. So understand that like as a medical student, people are worried about grades and they're worried about success and they're worried about A, B, and C. Don't worry about any of that. What you should really be doing is understanding that for 4 years as a medical student, you're going to be taught medical information. And whether you receive that medical information well or not determines whether you are going to be able to save someone's life or whether someone's going to die. And so that's really the way that you should function. And in terms of you guys, you should be the same way. So you should understand that for most of y'all are brahmacharyas. So what that means is that your purpose right now, your real dharma is preparation. You don't know what that challenge is going to look like. You don't know what you are going to be called to do, but you should prepare and grow as much as you can. And by as much as you can, what does that mean? How do you focus it? We'll kind of get to this later too. But I mean, I think that you guys should absolutely acquire some kind of professional skill, right? So let's take, I think it was not David, but that last guy, I forget his name. Was it David? Anyway. So that guy was kind of saying, I'm not actually a product manager yet. And then my response to him would be like, you should actually consider becoming a product manager, because at some point people may need your help, or you may realize, okay, I really want to do a life coach and I need to support myself while I grow my business, or I have a family or whatever. And then he's not going to have any financial income to support himself. And then he's going to have to, Joe. And then he's going to kind of be stuck. So he has to understand that, like, he has to support himself in his eventual dharma of helping people. Like, that's my path. And I think it's worked well for me, because I don't like, a case in point is like, we're not charging for the webinar, like, right? So we may charge for stuff. I'm working way less. So I'm working about 25% of what I did when I started Twitch streaming in October. And that's still okay. But like, I'm working less and less as we start to make more and more money so that I can do stuff like this. Instead of seeing patients, I'm spending more time on Healthy Gamer. But that, like, at any point, I'm not dependent on this income. And I think that really, like, you can support your dharma. If you're dependent on your dharma for your income, which you absolutely can be at some point, it just compromises what you're capable of. So your purpose should really be to learn and to develop and grow. And what does that mean? So that means like acquiring a professional skill. It also means like becoming personally stable. And what this means is swadhyay, or self-study. Right? So the brahmacharya traditionally in India, like, they included a lot of yoga and meditation. You would actually go to like a temple in the wilderness or an ashram, and that's where you do your education. So you're taught like about, like, everyone learns Ayurveda, everyone learns yoga, everyone learns meditation. And that stuff is actually like more important than learning mathematics or finance or things like that. So like your guru would teach you all that stuff. They teach you mathematics, they teach you science, they teach you medicine, they teach you to meditate, they teach you yoga. It's like a full package where you're staying at this place where monks live, and that's where you're learning. That's where school is. So in your case, you guys should absolutely gravitate towards a professional skill. You should endeavor to become personally stable. You should endeavor to become healthy. So that means physically, mentally, and spiritually. And the question is why? It's because at some point, you guys are going to face some challenge, right? So let's go back to Joe once again. Like, when he starts his life coaching business, if he isn't like mentally stable and he starts helping other people and their stuff kind of comes onto him, then he's going to really struggle to like maintain a high level of performance. Like, if he's not physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared to try to help other people. And he may be able to handle like whatever kind of, I'm not saying it's small, but like whatever he's handling right now, as it scales up and it becomes more important. And like, let's say that one day someone comes to him and says, Joe, I want to pay you $1,000 a week to work with me whenever I want to work with you. And what is Joe going to say? Is he going to treat that person differently because they have money? Is he going to be compromised by money? Like, what's going to happen? And so you really need to become personally stable, professionally stable, and healthy. And I want you guys to, I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they were kind of telling me that, like, when was the last time they felt like their dharma, they were really living their dharma, and they were walking down the beach, and great story. And they saw someone who was like kind of drowning, and they jumped into the water and they kind of helped them out. Unclear whether they would have drowned, whether they saved their life or things like that. Unclear. But they basically sort of saved this person's life. And the issue is that that person takes care of themselves physically. Like, that's an important part of how they live their day. But like, if they hadn't been a good swimmer and they weren't physically in shape, they would not have been able to do that. And I was kind of asking them, like, what would have happened if you didn't jump in? And he was like, well, there were a bunch of like overweight people who were watching from the shore, and I would have been just like them. So you don't know what challenges life is going to throw at you. So you've got to just prepare for all of them. And I want you guys to really think about that, and like, think about, what are you preparing for? Like, COVID is a good example of like, you don't know what the world is going to send your way. So you guys should be preparing for all of it. Prepare to make income, because you don't know when you're going to need money. Prepare to become personally stable and healthy, because you don't know what life is going to call on you to do. So the second phase is householder. So this is when you make money, you have kids and all that kind of stuff. So then you become like kind of professionally successful. You can start a family, things like that. And then you start to transition away. So this is when you become helpful. So after you've made your money, after your kids are kind of taken care of, this dharma is sort of, these two dharmas are kind of settled. Then you kind of transition away. And so I'd say like a beautiful example of this is Bill Gates. So Bill Gates is a guy who like made his money, like raised his kids, and now he's like focused on helping the world. The kind of dharma of service, when people are asking, oh, but I don't feel like helping people, I don't really know if that's the kind of person I am. I say, yeah, absolutely. You're not in a phase to help people yet. That happens later, right? So like I help people because I'm sort of, I mean, I'm kind of here and here. But actually helping people comes later in life. Once you're established and once your feet are firmly on the ground, then your capacity to help people increases astronomically. It doesn't mean that you should turn people away if they need your help tomorrow. But I'm saying that the kind of grand dharma that everyone is envisioning, where it's like dharma with a capital D of like helping the world and making the world a better place, for most people that comes later in life once they're established. So don't worry about that now. What you guys should really be focusing on is this. And the last phase of life is sannyas, which is sort of like really renunciation. So that's when you kind of give it all up and you devote yourself towards like meditation and spiritual enlightenment and God and whatnot. So monks take sannyas. So you kind of give up, you sort of say like, okay, I don't want any of this stuff. I'm just going to do like meditate all day. So those dudes in the Himalayas who are meditating in caves, they don't really help a bunch of people. They don't really do a whole lot. They don't have kids. They're just taking sannyas. So you kind of go, you kind of just go and focus on yourself. Okay. So if you guys are kind of saying, how do I find my dharma? The short answer is focus on this for now. Just focus on growing. And now we get to the last thing, which I'm going to try to cover in about 5 minutes. So dharma and karma. And a lot of people say, how do I find my dharma? And the short answer is you don't. Your dharma finds you. Right? So in the US, we watch television. And in Soviet Russia, television watches you. So the short answer is like, for those of you guys who are worrying about helping people, like we can see, for example, that your karma is going to determine your dharma. And what do I mean by that? Karma is kind of like circumstance or the hand you're dealt in life. And basically like the dharma that you have is going to present itself to you and you just need to be ready for it. Right? So like if you're walking down the beach and someone is drowning, like that's not something, finding your dharma in that moment has nothing to do with what you've sought, right? So dharma is not like sought, like dharma presents itself. Right? There are definitely exercises you can do to kind of like start to think through what your dharma is. But even now your dharma is presenting itself. And we can see that from David. So like, you know, who here has the capacity to help people like David does? Like who here has David's dharma? David has his dharma because it was given to him. I have my dharma because it was given to him, given to me. So we think about like, what's my dharma? It's to help gamers. Well, like, how did that happen? Right? Just think about this for a second. You know, I spent years of my life kind of being addicted to video games and sucking at life and dealing with shame and all that kind of crap. And I thought that all of that stuff was a waste of time. But that's my karma. Those were my circumstances, and I lived through that, and I'm glad that it went that way. Because if I had a 4.0 GPA and was like awesome at life from the get-go, I couldn't actually help you guys. So like even the things that you think when you live your life and you're like, oh, I can't find my dharma, I'm sitting at home, I'm not doing anything. I want you guys to understand I was in the same exact boat in my 20s and I wasn't doing anything. And despite that, or even teens, that was part of my karma and that reinforced what my dharma was going to be. And so my karma was to sort of suck at life. And then I had certain opportunities and I made good choices. I decided to, you know, spend time and get into yoga and stuff like that. But even that, I was drawn to it. It felt like a calling to me. And then I still invested that time and that energy into learning that stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, now I'm like married and like I'm in love with this girl. I wasn't married, but I was in love with this girl. And I was like, now what am I going to do? I'm not going to become a monk. I was like, all right, I might as well become a doctor. And so I was like, okay, like I'll become a doctor. And this is the other interesting thing. So we think of like jobs as goals. This doesn't actually inspire you to put your best forward. When a job is a means to an end, then you're going to put your best foot forward. When your job becomes part of your dharma, your job isn't your dharma, but it becomes part of your dharma. So I've decided, okay, like I'm going to become a doctor. And like, I didn't want to be a doctor because that was my dharma. It wasn't like, I'm going to save lives. That was ego. I was just like, I'm going to do this thing because it's going to support the other things that I want to do. And you know, so I was like, okay, fine. So it was kind of arbitrary, to be honest. Like, it was like, why become a doctor? It's like, kind of, why not? And oddly enough, that why notness allows you to become detached. And once you become detached, it's easier to act. Because like, I was just like, okay, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to try the hardest that I can. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. NBD. Okay. But kind of going back to dharma and karma, because I feel like I'm kind of scattered. So what I mean is that your dharma is going to present itself, and all you really need to do is prepare and act when the time is right. And your dharma is determined by your karma. So we can see this very clearly in David. David's dharma is very clear because his karma has given him a set of circumstances. My dharma is very clear because I have a set of circumstances. Give me a second. And so your dharma will become clear when you are given a set of circumstances. And we can see this with Joe too. 1 second. Oh, crap. 5 minutes. Okay. And so I don't want you guys to worry too much, as crazy as this sounds, about finding your dharma with a capital D, because we can sort of see it emerging. Like we can see it emerging with David. We can see it emerging with Joe. So be it. So like if Joe wants to help people, start helping people, but don't abandon your life. Don't give up on your career just because you like want to be a life coach. Like, I don't think that that's a good idea. I mean, I think that when you're ready, you can, you know, you'll be ready. And in the meantime, like let your karma will tell you what you need to do. Okay. So if you guys are looking for your dharma, that's okay. Like, good. You should look and you should seek. But at the same time, I wouldn't get too worried because your karma is going to present your dharma to you when it's your time. And in the meantime, your real focus is actually to prepare. This is your dharma right now, more than anything else. Okay? And then karma will let you know when it's time. Like, it'll come knocking. And we can see it with people, right? We see it with myself. We see it with David. We see it with Joe. That he shouldn't, I mean, if he wants to build a practice as a life coach, how early can it happen? It can happen very early. It can happen like when you're 5. Dharma can present itself at any time. If you guys don't know what you're supposed to do, don't worry about it, oddly enough, and prepare yourself for what may come. And there are also exercises and stuff that we can do. So I'm going to leave you guys with one last exercise, which is how to find the job of your dreams. Okay? And I know this sounds kind of weird, but this is kind of what I want you guys to do, okay? So I know I'm just talking about, you know, don't focus on finding a job, etc. But if you guys are looking for structure for preparation, this is what I want you guys to do, okay? So let's do this first. Application. So I'm going to try to tie things together, okay? So let's say that I want to work at Riot Games. How should you structure your preparation? So if you want to work at Riot Games, like, you know, I don't know how to do that. So this is what I want you guys to do. Like, I want you guys to think about what you would like doing or what you would like to try. And then so we're just going to go to this website, and this is going to tie together a lot of different stuff. Okay. So like, we're just going to look, like, cause I like League of Legends and I think it's cool. And so we're just going to look at this, right? So like, okay, do I want to be a lead artist? Not really. I don't want to do animation. Brand management, that's kind of cool. Like creative and IP development, that sounds neat. So let's just pick this. Then what we do is we look at our responsibilities. Okay, so manage product lifestyle from game concept to launch and post-launch. Promote the game, its vision and core mechanics across Riot. Ensure the game's marketing fit ensure the game and marketing fit the brand strategy through partnering with Riot's global publishing team. Manage in-game content planning, blah, blah, blah. And then we get to required qualifications. And then we get to desired qualifications. And this sounds like a lot, right? So like, if you think about this, this is like, oh, wow, like 5 years of marketing experience with at least 3 years in the video game industry. Oh my goodness. This sounds terrible. Okay. So now what we're going to do. So now what I want you guys to do is like take this and make these check boxes. So like grab a piece of paper, turn this into a checkbox, 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 turn all of these into checkboxes. And you may look at this and you may say like, oh, actually, I can't do this. Like there's no way, like I have to get a master's degree and then 5 years of experience. This is going to happen a decade later. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Then what I want you guys to do is start the first thing, like look at these checkboxes and work, like check the first, like try to figure out how to get started, right? So then what I want you guys to do is let's look through this and let's figure out, can we do anything on this list? Okay. Produce high quality game assets for marketing campaigns. I don't know how to do that. Present products to all audiences. I don't know how to do that. Manage communications across a worldwide organization. I don't know how to do that. Requires some travel. Oh, hey, look at this, guys. Plays games weekly on console, mobile, and PC. Check number 1. Just think about that. Okay, great. So then let's look at some of this other stuff. Proficiency with NetBase, Sprinkler, Brandwatch, or other equivalent tools. So then what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, I don't even know what that is. NetBase tutorial. Netbase.com. Okay. So then we're going to read this. We're going to read this. We're going to read this. And then can we see, let's see, NetBase certification. Okay, is this still, let me just make sure this is still streaming. Okay, good. So we're going to read this. Full product details can be found here. Ah, fail. Let's go back to NetBase. Customers. Okay, so we're gonna see what we can learn here, right? So there may be tutorials. So NetBase, and then what else do we need? Sprinkler. Okay. On-demand learning, public training. Oh, look, public training sessions. Great, right? So what we're gonna do is we're going to do offers virtual webinars. Okay. Certification programs. Okay, so we're not going to log in here, but we're going to look at that. And then what I want you guys to do is you're like, okay, I want to learn, I want to be a brand manager at Riot Games because I think social media is cool. And I like global, worldwide organization, global strategies. That sounds kind of neat. So you guys already checked number 1. And then what you're going to do is like during COVID, over the next month, you're going to learn these 2, right? And then once you check these 2, then you're going to have some qualifications. You're going to see what else can I do? Okay, do I have a bachelor's degree in marketing, communications, or business related field? Okay. And then what's going to happen after you do this is you're going to be like, oh, that's kind of cool. I actually like that. And then you're going to decide like, okay, do I want to actually do this kind of stuff or not? Understanding social media platforms, right? So we're going to watch Devin Nash's stream a little bit. And then we're going to kind of go from there. We're going to start learning this stuff. And then the interesting thing is, like, let's say you finished half of your college or you dropped out after one semester. Then you decide, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go back to college because, like, I actually do want to do this stuff. I think it's really cool. And the neat thing is that right now, when you guys go to college, like, you don't actually care about anything that you learn, right? You're like, it's college. But now you're like, okay, I need a bachelor's degree. And while you're in college, it becomes way more fun because college is no longer an end. It's not a goal. You're like, oh, I need college to get a good job. It's actually, college is one of the pieces that's required to get the job of your dreams. And you're going to major in marketing but that's weird because marketing is for losers. And I want to major in law or accounting or medicine or computer science or statistics or mathematics. And then while you're going through college, every step of the way, you're going to be going to your professors and you're going to be asking them, hey, do you know anyone who uses Brandwatch or other equivalent tools? Do you know where I can get experience understanding brand campaign indicators, metrics, or analytics? You're going to go to your professors and you're going to ask them these questions. And then your professors are going to look at you and they're going to be like, wow, this kid is like super, super motivated. And they're going to say, yeah, actually, I have a buddy who works in a company. I'm going to set you up with an internship. And then you're going to get an internship or you're going to start applying for internships. And then what's going to happen is you're going to put together a resume at some point. And since you guys used a month very productively during COVID, learning NetBase and Sprinkler, you're going to, on your resume, you're going to say, I am Joe David, and I'm 21 years old, and my qualifications are I've completed 2 years of college, and I have a 2.8 GPA. You don't have to advertise that if you don't want to. And then you can say, the next line beneath that is certified in NetBase, Sprinkler, and Brandwatch. And you're going to say, like, completed a marketing project that used brand campaign indicators, metrics, and analytics to develop a creative media strategy. That's what you're going to say on your resume. And then suddenly, 6 months from now, you guys are in college again, and you've got that on your resume. And do you guys see how, like, that's a real thing? Like, you're a real person now. And when you apply for an internship at a company, they're like, oh God, this guy actually knows something. And from now to even 3 months or 6 months from now, where you had nothing, now you've got a resume. And it's a real resume. And like, you're there. And then you have an internship. So then what happens? Like, you get an internship. And then what happens is, like, you apply for the next internship. So you go to Riot Games and then you say, I'm an undergrad. I've done an internship with this company. You have a letter of recommendation from your professor. This is one semester. This is like, right now it's April, right? So we're going to go through the summer and then we're going to enroll in college in the fall. We're going to apply now because now we actually care about applying. And then come November of 2020, you're going to apply to Riot Games and you're going to say, I'm looking for an internship. I'm highly motivated. I'm familiar with Brandwatch, Sprinkler, this and this. I did my project on this, and then I did an internship at this company where I focused on using industry trends, partnerships, and learning the branded content landscape. And I am interested in an internship where I can, let's think about this. How would I say this? I'm interested in gaining knowledge of the game development process and life and cycle, so that I can build a uniform brand strategy that combines game development with, like, market analytics to create, like, a good product that lands well with its audience and is also globally branded to, like, impact multiple markets or some shit like that. You say, this is what I'm looking for. And then suddenly, like, you're like a real person. And like, if you're I don't really know people at Riot Games. I mean, actually we do. We're in talks with them, but we've met some of them. But when I think about, when I'm reviewing applications, like, what do I look for? It's stuff like this. And so if you guys think about this, like, you can do this, right? Like, this is something that you can manage on your own. And it's not hard. And like, now we sort of get to, like, sort of the summary of everything. So we talk about motivation, we talk about procrastination, we talk about avoidance of emotions, we talk about chunking up tasks, we talk about dharma and preparation and brahmacharya. This is everything tied together. Do you guys see that? So the first thing is you're not motivated because you don't understand what your goals are. Your goals are way too abstract. You're procrastinating because you haven't chunked up tasks properly and you feel like shame and you feel bored and you don't know what your dharma is, so you're not doing everything. This process combines all of that stuff. We're chunking up tasks. We're stepping away from shame because you're learning something before you even like you go to college. So you're gonna be like the one student in your marketing class, which is filled with a bunch of freshmen. And instead of feeling shame because you're 21 and sitting in a class with a bunch of 18-year-olds, those 18-year-olds have no idea what they're doing with life. And you're showing up with your professor and you're saying, I'm certified in brand watch and sprinkler. I'd like to better understand brand campaign indicators, metrics, and analytics. Can you please help me? And then all the 18-year-olds are going to look at you and be like, who the fuck is this guy? And then like, that's it. Like all of the procrastination like becomes way easier. The motivation starts happening naturally. You're starting to prepare yourself for your dharma. And then 1 or 2 years down the road, you may realize, oh, actually, I don't like this. But then that's actually perfectly fine because then you just make a career pivot. Let's say that what you actually want to do is not brand management, but you want to do like game development. And then you're like, okay, I actually want to build video games. So then what you actually do is you're like, oh man, like this sucks because all these people who have built video games are going to be more experienced than me. But I want you guys to think about this for a second. When you apply for your next job to be a game developer, you do some of this process as well. So you learn how to like program or whatever. And then on your application, it says that I want to design video games and I have a background in marketing analytics, brand campaign indicators. And I believe I offer a unique advantage over your other programmers because while I'm developing a video game, I have a knowledge of the brand side of things and what kind of video game development will be well suited to be like marketed globally across, globally. And my appreciation for metrics and analytics allows me to like do an iterative process of game development that allows the game to be more accessible and like better played. It's not just mechanics. I understand the branding stuff too. And then you think about this, like, so they're going to get like applications for programmers, right? And they're going to look at your application and they're going to be like, oh, this guy is disadvantaged because he understands brand analytics. No, it's dumb. Right? I don't know what my dream job is. Fine. So pick something. What do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? Start there. That's fine. You don't need a dream job. Like, you're not going to actually like, you think that the first thing that you're going to pick is going to be like what you invest 8 years doing? Forget about that. Pick something that you think is cool and just start there. And this is exactly why I'm talking to you guys about the pivot. The pivot is because you don't have to pick your dream job. You just have to pick a job. And if you kind of like it, you can pivot into other fields. Okay? So listen, last thing we're going to end with. So let's stop screen share and give me a second. Okay, hold on. Last thing I kind of know the answer to this, but let's just ask, okay? So questions at the end or in the middle? That's stupid. I know the answer, but we'll ask anyway because we shouldn't make assumptions. I want to just get this data right now. But that's kind of how we tie things together. Okay, at the end. Easy. Okay. So great job today, guys. We're going to, hopefully this makes sense. We did meditation earlier, but yeah, so we'll see you guys tomorrow and I'll try to outline some of this stuff like a little bit more. Like, by the way, this whole find the job of your dreams thing is actually like a YouTube thing that I've sort of developed, but so hopefully you guys can kind of see, like, I want you guys to just think about that and think about your notes from motivation and procrastination and see how motivation and procrastination would be affected by this plan. Okay. And we're going to stream today in about an hour and 10 minutes. So I got to run. Thanks, guys.